بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين. And we have not sent you except as a mercy for the people, for the universe. لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. Certainly, the messenger has come to you from among yourselves. Your distress is painful to him. He is anxious for you. To the believers, he is compassionate and merciful. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim. The first verse I recited was chapter 21, verse 107, and this verse is chapter 9, verse 128. As I said to you last week, I want to take 3 or 4 weeks to look at the character of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and the circumstances through which he went, and the trials through which he went. So in this khutbah, I want to look at his early life, from perhaps his birth or infancy to the time that he married Hazrat Khadija. Now, at the time that the Holy Prophet Muhammad was born, there was a concern amongst people of Makkah, because in Arabia you had desert nomads who lived in tents and who roamed about and so on, and Makkah had become a settlement because the Kaaba was there, and there was a spring of water there. So it became a city like any other city with an established life. And people there were concerned that their children were losing touch with the desert lifestyle. So traditions sprang up that people from various tribes, nomads who lived in the desert, would come to Makkah, and they would foster children, and they would take them with them to the desert, and these kids would spend some years in the desert, and then they would be returned to their parents. And of course, each one of the families who came in from the desert to Makkah wanted to foster a child belonging to a rich family, a politically well-connected, powerful family, because it actually created a brotherhood or a sisterhood between the two families. So, if you were connected to a rich and powerful family, you could hope to see more benefit than if it was a poor family. Now, there was one family, the mother was called Halima, who left it too late to come to Makkah that year to take a baby for fostering, and there was only one child left, and that was the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they came to know that the child is an orphan, the father has died, and the tribe or the clan that he belongs to, Banu Hashim, has fallen on hard times financially. So they don't have a lot of money. Although they were still a prominent tribe, but they had lost a lot of their influence and so on because they had fallen into poverty. So, but there was no other child. And Halima and her husband, and in fact the whole family was there, her son and their daughters and so on. They discussed whether it was worth taking the Holy Prophet with them. But eventually they were so taken with the baby that they decided, money or no money, influence or no influence, they will take this child and foster and bring up the child. Now, it was during the Holy Prophet's stay in the desert that that famous incident took place, where it is said that the Holy Prophet was playing with his foster family out in the desert, and two men came and they cut open his heart, and then they cleansed it and they put it back in his breast and left. And of course his foster family were terrified. Children ran back and told their parents, etc. A lot of people believe it was a physical experience. A lot of people believe that it was a spiritual experience. That what was, yes, the angels came, but they didn't physically take out the Holy Prophet's heart and cleanse it and so on. Now, the original contract was for 2 years. Halima was to look after the Holy Prophet Muhammad for 2 years and then return him to Amina, who was the Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallam's mother. But when Halima took the Holy Prophet back, she could not bear to part with him. And she was so distressed at the thought of leaving the Holy Prophet Muhammad with his real mother that Amina decided to let Halima take the child back to the desert for another 3 years. So it was 5 years that the Holy Prophet Muhammad spent in the desert rather than just 2. And then Halima brought back the Holy Prophet Muhammad to his mother Amina, who unfortunately died within 1 year of getting him back. The Holy Prophet was 6 when his mother died, leaving him parentless. His grandfather was 80 years old, and he took over the child, its care and so on. But within 2 years, he had passed away as well, and it was left to his uncle, his father's brother, and to bring him up. Now, you see, the miracle here, that this child has no one to guide him, no one to tell him right from wrong, and yet he grows up to become this great reformer for humanity. That alone is a great enough miracle to establish his prophethood. And the story of the 2 men or the angels who came to visit him and cleanse his breast and so on, I think is meant to show that even if you don't have anyone, God is always there to protect you and guide you. We often hear, when an uncle or someone says to a child, don't do this or do this, the child says, you're not my dad, you're not my mom. And yet this child had no one else apart from Allah to guide him along the right paths. Becoming a prophet is one thing. But what I'm saying to you is, even before the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had prophethood bestowed on him, God had selected him for this mission, and he was protecting and guiding him and setting him up as a model of behavior for humanity. Anyway, the Holy Prophet was now in being fostered and looked after by a new guardian, Abu Talib. And Abu Talib was a trader, and many times he would lead trade caravans to Syria and these places, etc. And there are some occasions when we know that the Holy Prophet Muhammad accompanied him. There is that famous example of that when they went to, they came to a town at that time called Bostara. Now I think it's called Basra. And they were having a meal. And that area was predominantly a Christian area. And where they were having a meal close by, there was a monastery, and there was a Christian monk, Bahira. He saw the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and he observed him closely. And when Abu Talib was leaving, the monk approached him. And he said, "How are you related to this boy?" And Abu Talib said, "I'm his father." And the monk said, "No, you're not. Tell me what your real relationship is." And then Abu Talib explained. And this monk then told Abu Talib, he said, "Take good care of him and protect him. Because from what I have observed, he will have many enemies who will try and get rid of him." And so it happened later on in life. But the other thing to think about is that yes, his uncle was looking after him, but what was the Holy Prophet doing? From a very young age, from the age of 8 years, the Holy Prophet went to work. You have kids and they can't have enough iPads and iPhones and switches and God knows what else, and they're on them all day long playing this game and playing that game. And there was this 8-year-old boy who, to support his uncle, because as I said to you, Banu Hashim had fallen on hard times. Rather than beg, rather than simply depend on his uncle's generosity, he went out and he worked. He collected fruit and sold it or used it to feed animals. He was a shepherd. Later on, the Holy Prophet Muhammad was asked, and he said, "Yes, I was a shepherd." And being a shepherd was regarded as a very low-class job, a very menial job. It was a bit like the American Western, where you had these battles between cattlemen and shepherds. It was exactly the same. And he was a camel driver for other people. And he was a trader. And he has such good business acumen that, and he built up such a reputation for being honest and truthful and a very skilled and good negotiator. And having a great business acumen, that Hazrat Khatija hired him. He was 25 and still single, probably because in those days, marriages were regarded as a means of creating connections. So you wanted your son or your daughter to marry into a rich family or a family that was politically well connected. This is not unknown. This is what the kings in the West used to do. This is what a lot of politicians still do. Rich families marry within rich families. Why? To create connections for business and so on. Now here was this guy, he was honest, handsome, truthful, good business, but no money and no connections. And for a boy not to be married by the age of 25, at that time in Arabia, this was regarded as being old. Boys were married off when they were 16, 17 or something like that. So, Hazrat Khadija asked him to marry her. She was 40 years of age and already twice widowed with children. Look, from his very beginning, the Holy Prophet Muhammad is creating examples for us that a woman can ask a man to marry her. That there is no harm or shame or embarrassment in someone who's been widowed twice in asking a man much younger than she is in marrying her. There is nothing wrong with an employer, with a female employer asking an employee to marry her. When we talk about Sunnah, why do we forget these things? Do you think God didn't have any purpose in the Holy Prophet going through all of this? What did the verse say that I started with? We have sent you as a mercy. As a mercy how? That through your sunnah, through your conduct, you will create examples for people to follow. But we've forsaken all those. Just to that point, there are lessons in the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number one, however difficult the circumstances, never lose heart, never become depressed. Have faith. One day you will overcome these things. Whatever the circumstances, you must remain true to your beliefs and your convictions. Holy Prophet was having a hard time. Presumably, someone said to me, oh, you can't make a profit in business unless you lie. There was a man who needed to prove himself. And yet, though in having picked the most difficult profession of salesman, he's still truthful and honest. So you must remain true to your beliefs and your convictions, whatever trials you are facing. That is the whole point. When the sun is shining, anyone can make hay. When things are good, when you have £1 million in your bank account and you don't need to lie and cheat and so on, and you see someone and you give them £5, you feel very good. But the time to feel good is when you have nothing and you see someone who needs money and you need that £5 and you give it to him. This was the example that the Holy Prophet Muhammad was setting. And that Allah looks after everyone. But we need to be true to Him and we need to call upon His help. Don't go running around asking Mr. this or Minister that or General this or General that for help and assistance and so on. Don't be envious of other people. Be happy for them for what they have. And pray to Allah to give you the strength and the knowledge and the wisdom to achieve these things. Let's go back. How did the Holy Prophet achieve this? He didn't have any parents. He was poor, who were persecuted in Makkah. He ran a business. He was doing jobs. And still he achieved great success without deceiving anyone, without being dishonest, without lying, without cheating. In 25 short years, to cram in such an example for humanity, that in itself is enough to show that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a mercy created by Allah for the whole of humanity. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafa'na wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malikun barra'ufur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyi'ati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma ansur man nasara dina Muhammadin sallallahu alaihi wasallam واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم عباد الله رحمة الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي الصلاة حي الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر لا إله الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أستغفر الله. اللهم أنت السلام. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا. I forgot to announce that we have had a few deaths like Dr. Zubaida, etc. in Pakistan and other places. So we will now say a collective funeral prayer in absentia for all of them. There are 4 takbeers, and after the first takbeer you start as normal, and then after the second takbeer you recite Allahumma salli, and after the third takbir, the Arabic funeral prayer if you know it, and if you don't, then you can pray for the deceased and your relatives who passed on in your own language. Then after the fourth takbir there is, we end the prayer by saying Assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining us for our Friday service. Our next broadcast will be on Sunday. It's 1400 hours UK time for the Urdu broadcast. Dawat Museum out, and then 1430 Call of the Messiah, which is in English. With a prayer that wherever you are and whoever you are, may Allah keep all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Until we meet again on Sunday, Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and